Salutations, respected viewers. I'm George from Ireland. This video is about what I like about the United States. So one of my faithful viewers has said that I seem to be overly critical of the United States, constantly castigating it. Though this could be misunderstood, I certainly lambast President Trump and his acolytes. There's certain aspects of the United States I dislike, or certain policies and so on. There are obviously positive things too. So here in this video I try to offer the corrective and focus on the things that I appreciate about the United States, because it's certainly not all bad. So if I was speaking about any country, I would be somewhat critical, including my own. As I've said elsewhere, I strive for objectivity, and that includes in relation to my homeland too. Anyway, I visited the United States several times, but not for many moons. I've been to Washington, D.C. twice. I've been into Virginia, only to Mount Vernon. That is George Washington's house, in case you don't know. I've been to all the states of New England, particularly New Hampshire. I've been to New York City, and that's it. So just the East Coast, really, Northeast particularly. But I'd like to go again to New Orleans, for instance. Perhaps somewhere, some lovely coastal town of Florida. I can't think, California. San Francisco seems very livable. Perhaps visit Salt Lake City, find out about my ancestors, because they've got all these genealogical records. And what's the other one? Oh yeah, Las Vegas. Because what happens in Vegas, it's so well known and I have to complete the saying. So I used to consider studying in the United States. I didn't consider it for very long. So it's a country of which I once had a very high opinion, but there's still obviously things to value about it. Well, talk about the landscape. Well, its flora and fauna is just so enormously variegated, because the country is so gigantic, is it the third largest country in the world? So, I haven't even scratched the surface of it, obviously. So there'll be majestic forests and enormous lakes or delightful coastline and things like that. Not so much into deserts or prairies. So, freedom of expression, that's got to be valued. Now, some of the marvellous things about the United States are not unique to the United States, nor originated there. But there's a worrying trend in the United Kingdom and other Western European countries to restrict freedom of expression. Say this is hate speech, you causing fear, disorder, offence, by words or behaviour, blah, blah, blah. And obviously a lot of this behaviour is loathsome, and a lot of things these people say are revolting. But it shouldn't be criminalised. So expressions of opinion, savagely criticising whatever it is, belief system, that ought to be allowed. And in the United States, it is allowed. Burning people's flags, burning any flag, is a horrid thing to do, but there shouldn't be a law against it. Now, I don't think there's a law against it in any Western European country. I know the United States mulled this flag desecration law. I don't think it got passed in the end, actually. So there's so much choice to be had in the United States, and partly because of its sheer size. And it's good that some states have legalized cannabis. I know cannabis is very bad for people's mental and physical health. I'm not pretending otherwise, but I think people ought to be allowed to decide to do these foolish things. So it's a country of almost endless possibilities. Music. That's one of the fabulous things about the United States. So unlike many famous musicians, American musicians, or artists, as we're expected to call them these days, going back certainly to Elvis, even Buddy Holly. Who was the guy before that? Glenn Miller, In the Mood, way back in the 40s, the big band leader. Prior to that, I can't really think. I'm not big into jazz. Like Louis Armstrong, though. Unchained Melody, is that by the Righteous Brothers? Don McLean is American Pie. I'm just mentioning some of the fantastic songs I can never forget. Richie Valens and La Bamba. To think he died at the age of 17, already a huge star. And by the way, he wasn't as good looking as that Lou Diamond Phillips who played him in the film. He was actually very chubby. Have You Ever Seen the Rain? A song I really like. Fortunate Son. What else? And various Motown bands like the Supremes, the Vandellas, Diana Ross. And then moving on to comedy. Robin Williams, unfortunately, is no longer with us. Comedic genius. And who else is very mirthful? Steve Martin. Enormously gifted, high-octane stage performer. And so much has been on Saturday Night Live. Well, these new guys, what are they called? Michael Che, that guy, Jost, I can't remember his Christian name actually, and various talk shows like that by Ellen DeGeneres, and there's a humorous element to it. So Hollywood, well, what can I say? It produces 9 out of 10 of the brilliant films in the world. And they're far too numerous to mention. Some of the ones I really liked when I was little were the Blues Brothers, Spies Like Us, but I could go on. It produces magnificent films every year. And, even talking about the British film industry or the Irish film industry, many of these would not have been made without Hollywood and without Hollywood funding. So they're really American films in many cases, even if they're set in the UK, not just the locale, but the actors, and even they're produced in the UK. Really, it's Hollywood behind it. So there are many scintillating political discussion shows, such as The Young Turks, such as David Pakman, such as Rachel Maddow, Morning Joe. I watch that every day. And much though I abominate Fox News, it makes for compelling viewing, and it has some very lubricious ladies who are very glamorously got up. Doesn't hurt. So I think the things could have turned out differently had the United States not entered the Second World War, had the United States not entered the Cold War. And I know moral compromises had to be made in that. You can say that again. But had that not been done, had people not bitten the bullet and done distasteful things in order to achieve a greater good, where would we be now? Well, I know which country would be master of the world. And it would be a dull, drab, monochrome life with very few choices for us. And we wouldn't have this American joie de vivre, or we wouldn't have all the range of options that we have today. It would have been very bland. We might well have been living in fear of a different kind. So, the United States, even in the worst years of the Cold War, the Communist Party was legal. Despite McCarthyism, the Communist Party was allowed to exist. And that speaks volumes. The Communist Party put forward candidates for the presidency. He never got even 1% of the vote, but nevertheless, he could stand. People were allowed to vote for him. That was that. Nobody was prosecuted for being a member of that party, for voting them, that kind of thing. So there were real elections, which are sometimes unpredictable, which certainly can't be said about some other parts of the world. So even the United States has not observed democracy in other parts of the world. It has done so at home. And for that, at least, the United States deserves some credit.